So you had a question about archive pages in WordPress.
Yes, so I have set up Yoast to not index my date archive pages, but I have allowed Yoast to index my categories and tag page archives. Um, when I went back through to look at the settings, Yoast recommended that I no index my date archives, but I didn't see any sort of notification next to categories or tags, which is why I left them to be indexed. Is there a best practice? Does that depend on other factors? Like my client saw this, and this is how my client saw that that the data archives were being no indexed, and so I gave her a pretty good explanation, but now I'm wondering if there is going to be some competition among the categories and tags for her post as well. So that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is a really good question, and it can really get us into a lot of different topics. I'm going to try to rein myself in here. So what is we got to first ask, so what are the purpose of tags and categories and even date archives in a blog?
So help organize content.
Right. To help organize content, to help humans get to content better that is more relevant to them. So for instance, like if they want to be able to say, well, what did she write about last month? Great, we can look at the month archive, right? Or, oh, I would like to learn more about this category. Great, they can get. So there's a human element to that. There's also an SEO element to this, but it's not like people think. And if I find the idiot who suggested that tagging posts in WordPress is helping your SEO, I'm going to punch him straight in the face. That's the stupidest advice ever. You just need to have a plan of organization. So the question isn't, does one or the other work best for you? The question is, what is your overall plan for consuming content? So for instance, if your content is dated fundamentally in order because the date is important to the content. Let's say it's like news section, or some sort of like, hey, someone would want to know what happened in 2013.
Yeah.
Right? Then that becomes a valuable part. Now, no index doesn't affect humans getting to it.
Exactly.
Right? But and so I think Yoast is recommending no index the date because that's going to really resemble just the normal pagination archives, right?
Of
the same stuff is going to be. So if you have, for instance, default 10 posts per page, the regular blog post pagination is going to be identical to the archive for the most part. And so what that ends up doing is creating a duplicate content problem. Right? So now this duplicate content problem isn't a serious problem in the sense that we're not really looking for Google typically to index our data archives.
Yeah.
But if we were, then we would take advantage of a WordPress feature that allows us in our archive pages to add blurbs of content, right? So for instance, on Curious Ants, we got everything's in 5 categories. There's a link building category. And at the very top of the link building page, guess what? There's some content that is common to all the link building stuff, right? Because they want to use the category page as a landing page, right? So Yoast probably is saying just no index the date pages because it resembles, and it's not useful to Google to crawl that too.
Yeah.
Okay. However, if you didn't have categories or tags, if you weren't using them for some reason, then it would be important to make sure that was indexable, because then Google can skip to different parts of it and see the deeper content quicker, right? So that case, you would allow that. to be indexed.
If you weren't using categories or tags, you would allow the
Right.
date archive to be.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so then what, this just brings the question of how do we organize our content? And I like to have a couple rules. Categories meaning everything in the blog should belong to one and only one category, right? And never have a category with less than 2 pieces in it. 2 or less, I should say. So, in other words, we should never have a category with one article in that category.
Yeah.
Right. And we are using features within WordPress like the read more tag and the preview to not put the entirety of a blog post in an archive page. But so this becomes the reason this is important is because Google recently, in my recent probably a year, changed the way they handle robots tags on blogs. And so Yoast is adding a robots tag to your archive page. And robots tag will have no follow, no index on it, which is saying don't index the page and don't follow the links. We used to have a directive where we'd say no index but follow. Google ignores the follow directive. So at one point we might have said as a best case for all your archive, even your date archives, you would say no index but follow. So Google could potentially uncover a new blog post, but Google ignores the follow, no follow thing. It applies no follow if it's no indexed. So that at that point is just no index the blog archive and use your category so Google can get deeper and find the deep articles in your blog. So that's a really long way of saying, yeah, don't index your archive typically.
Got it. So basically the way I have it set up is the best practice for most blogs, as long as we're using categories and tags.
Right. And if the client's just like, we must have this, then I wouldn't fall on that sword. It's probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But it just as a best practice, don't do it. And you will check I would check in Search Console eventually and look at like crawled not indexed or discovered not indexed or alternate canonical tag selected, and that will tell you how Google is reading through your archives.
Okay.
And it's not a warning as much as Google saying, hey, we've crawled this archive page, but we've not added it to the index.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Like, we don't really care about that. Like, yeah. So that's where you can kind of monitor those things to make sure that Google is indeed treating it the way you want. And if you find that somehow it's not, you want it to index the 2013 page or something like that,
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. But yeah, then you can work about that. But yeah. But it's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked. Thank you.